Hi everybody, and welcome to the first edition of our reading circle. What is a reading circle? Well, I'm sure you've all heard of book clubs, where people get together and they decide on a book that they're going to read, take a few weeks and they come back together and discuss it. And of course, at the moment that sort of thing isn't really possible. I'm not sure what kind of books you guys have in your house. The libraries are closed. And we don't want to take weeks to read a book either, and get some ideas on it. So what I thought we would do is a reading circle where I can decide on a short story and send it out to you guys, and you can have a read and think about it, and then we can discuss it the week after. So that's really the concept of the reading circle. That's how it's different from a book club. So what I'd like to say first is that there are a few different types of reading. Reading isn't just one thing. It really depends on why you're reading. So if you think about how you read, if you were going to try and look at a bus timetable, for example, you probably wouldn't read the entire bus timetable. What you would do is that you would look for the day and the places that are important to you. Where is it that you want to go? And you would just read that little section of the bus timetable, and that's reading for specific information. The kind of reading that really we want to do is about reading for pleasure, and it's not about looking at that just one little part, one little detail. It's about looking at a piece of writing as if that you're looking at a beautiful picture. If you think about if you've ever been to a museum or to kind of a fancy house where they have paintings up around the walls, or even if you've seen a nice photograph in a shop window, for example, looking at those images, and it's about getting an impression. It's about thinking in your head, yeah, I like that, or I don't like that, and it's about taking what it is that you see and bringing that away through your day. So there are, I'm sure you can think of photographs or paintings that you've seen that make you feel happy, or that you think back on and think that they're beautiful or they're horrible, or whatever it is, that you've got some kind of impression from looking at this thing. This picture I took last year in Belfast, and I really like this picture, this photograph. I just took it on my phone. But I like it because of the colours. I think the colours are really lovely, because it was a very unusual scene, and also because I was having a really nice day. So I took this photograph, and it's the background for my home PC now, because it has kind of good connections, good connotations for me. But to enjoy this picture, and as you're looking at it now, we're not thinking about how are the umbrellas constructed, how are they connected together. We're not thinking about what material is that umbrella made from. We're not thinking about how it is that they're hung up in that alleyway. What we're doing is we're looking at the whole scene. We're looking at the picture as a moment in time, just as an image, and we're taking something from that. And really, when we're thinking about reading for pleasure, that's what you're trying to do. The good thing about that, of course, is that if we're reading for pleasure and we're thinking about reading as pictures, as images, we don't need to think so much about grammar. That's for Wednesday's class. We don't need to think about grammar so much, and we don't need to worry about individual words that we don't understand. If you're reading for pleasure and you meet a word you don't understand, jump over it, move on. Remember, you're just looking for the picture. You're not looking for individual brush strokes, so you can move past those. Now later, of course, if you're interested, you can certainly go back to the story and try and find out those words that you don't understand. Try and look them up in a dictionary, or of course on the internet there's dictionaries all over the place, so you can find the meanings of those words. You can think a little bit more about the language. That's certainly possible, but it's not necessary, and that's really important to remember. everybody who's going to do this kind of reading exercise can take something different from it, because it really depends on why you're reading. Is it just to pass the time? Is it because you want to get better at reading? Is it because you want to read different stuff? Is it because in the future you want to go and study English? So everybody's coming to this exercise from a different perspective, from a different point of view, and everybody's going to get something a little bit different from it. So you have to make it work for you. You don't need to worry about what other people are doing with it. The story that I've picked for this week, and basically I'll be emailing it out to anybody who's interested later this afternoon. The story I've picked is by an American writer called Ernest Hemingway. You might have heard of him. He's pretty famous. And he's written some really, really great stuff. Now, the story that I've picked for next week is quite short. We're going to start off pretty easy, and it's called The Old Man at the Bridge. I'm not going to give you any more information than that, because sometimes if you explain the background of stories, you know, it kind of puts people off, and I don't want to do that. We're just looking at this as a picture, remember, just as something that we're looking at very, very simply. Okay, so I picked Ernest Hemingway for a few different reasons. First of all, because I think he's a really good writer. He's a really accessible writer. What does that mean? It means that the way that he writes isn't too fancy. Okay, that was the kind of style that he was into. So it should be pretty straightforward to follow this story. The other reason that I picked Ernest Hemingway is because I read a really interesting story about him this week, and it's about being quarantined, which is quite appropriate for us. So basically, Hemingway was married. He had a 3-year-old son, and they were living in Paris. And Ernest decided that he was going to go to Madrid to be a famous writer, of course, as you do. So he sodded off to Madrid, and his wife took their young son to the south of France for the summer. Sounds lovely. Wait for it. So the wife and the son, who she had nicknamed Bumby, this is not a joke, Bumby, apparently because he looked like a little chubby teddy bear, he became ill. He developed whooping cough while they were on the south coast, and it's a very contagious illness, so they were confined, quarantined to their house. They had to stay in this little house that their friend had lent them on the south coast. The Hemingway's wife called the nanny down from Paris, so the nanny arrives to the house, and then Hemingway's mistress arrives to the house, and then Hemingway arrives to the house. So we've got Hemingway, his rather irritated wife, his mistress, the nanny, and Bumby, the 3-year-old with whoopee cough, in a 2-bedroom house on the south coast of France. That's a quarantine. Okay, so that was, I thought, quite an interesting story, and that's one of the reasons that I started thinking about Hemingway this week, and I picked this story. So the story that we're looking at, it's set in 1938, that's all I'm going to say. It's called The Old Man at the Bridge. You can email me and I will send that story to you. There are also some extra questions that you can think about to go with that, but really those are optional. The main thing I want you to think about after you read this story is, do you like it? Why and why not? And what I'd like you to do is, once you've thought about that, is basically send me those ideas. So send me the ideas about what makes this a good story for you, or what makes this a kind of crappy story for you. What do you think about it? Send those ideas to me. The other questions that are in there are really if you want to look at this in a little bit more detail, and please feel free to answer all of those questions and send them back to me as well. And we can have a talk about them. I mean, I'll kind of read out some answers anonymously next week on this segment. And I mean, basically that's it. So I have a few email addresses already. If you're interested and you haven't already let me know, then please either email me directly or talk to your key worker and they'll put you in touch and I'll get that story out to you. Or you can just look for it on the internet because it's available. So it's called The Old Man at the Bridge. It's by Ernest Hemingway, and hopefully you'll enjoy the process of reading regardless of whether you like the story or not. Okay, so happy reading, and I'll see you next week. Bye!